So, hello, and a massive hello to everybody. Hope everybody's having a great day wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. This is 50 Pips, rocking and rolling here. No trade calls or recommendations. We're responsible for their own stuff. Here for educational purposes only. Sessions are recorded. You'll get an email with the recording as soon as it's over. As long as you use it for your own personal use only, nobody will be blocked, nobody will be banned, and we'll all behave as one big happy family. So, let's get this party started. If anybody has anything they want to look at, anything they want to discuss, just put it into the chat box. I'll get to it in a second. Any trades you're in, anything, trade management, whatever, I'll get to it in a second. After we'll do a quick overview here and then also go through my trades, what trades I'm in and what I've been doing today. Now, NASDAQ, most interesting chart for us, as we discussed and yesterday, as we've been discussing, our base case is that tech is topped, right? July 13th, and that starting that everything has been, we'd expect to see a rotation out of tech, possibly into the others, unless we get a general correction. But our base case was that tech was going to underperform, and that's what we were more comfortable with if we had to look at the short side, right? Now here, what's happening on the NASDAQ is we're at an extremely interesting level. I mean, we saw Apple bid yesterday, pretty much the only one trying to hold everything up. But here we're right back at that important point, right? If you remember, we had those shorts we're looking at here, and our base case is that this was extremely interesting risk reward for the correction back into the pivotal previous all-time highs where we saw the market stalling, and only underneath here we would be getting interested in adding a little bit of size and getting a little bit more aggressive on this trade. So right now we're here, and today's close is going to be extremely important, right? Extremely important, not only because we're going to have to see what happens with these previous highs. No such thing as a triple top. We got the fake out we were looking for, and now, possible failure, possible fake out. 10-day moving average. So today, what we want to see, especially if you're riding shorts, is we want to see a daily close below 11,061, the previous, and we also want daily close below the 10-day moving average. Okay. That, without going into the whole thing again, that gives us even more conviction for the downside and for our 5 to 10% correction, also lining up with seasonals, with a lot of other cycles we discussed, right? And basically what we're looking for is anything back into the 10,500, so 10,500. And if we get some Momo, and if it's more of general weakness in the market, a little bit, a little bit more heavy, then back into the 10,000 mark. Now, clearly this come all the way back down into the 200-day, right? But that's not our base case assumption. Our base case assumption is that the market is still strong. There's still dip buyers there. And that in any case, even on some aggressive weakness, this whole high from the start of the year, right, into that 10,000, so that 10,000 into 97.65 will find plenty of buyers, unless it's on some kind of a headline or something really ugly happen. But that is basically our base case. And remember, before it formed, of course you don't know until these things form, we were talking about that 5 to 10% correction, and the way it's lining up from those highs, if this confirms, if we go down, it's anywhere between 6 to 11.5. So those are the two key levels we've been discussing, and those are why those are highlighted on our chart. So again, nothing much to do here, nothing new, and we just have to see how this plays out. Remember, we were talking about, also in the Sunday update from last week, but we talked about it a little bit more in the Sunday update, and we mentioned it yesterday at the beginning of the webinar, is don't be surprised if you get a situation where correlations go to 1 and we start to see a nice little retracement across the board, because that's also what the charts were pointing at, especially seeing the action we saw in bonds, gold, etc. across the board into the end of next week. So today we've got a situation where NASDAQ is still holding a little bit heavier, but more importantly, you're also seeing bonds. Let's look at ZN, but it's very similar across the board, right? You're seeing Zien's breakdown, and we would not be surprised to see this come all the way back down into this bottom of the range, which we'd still expect to get supported at the very least back into this base. And that's ZN, ZBs, UBs, very similar action. And again, if you see here, gold, again, as we said, very nice little short here, negative close. At the very least, we'd expect it to come back into 1920s. And that's what's trying to play out, right? So silver's down, gold's down. So, you know, fairly classical action that would line up with some dollar strength, right? Across the board. So far, these things are trying to play out, and that's what you want to watch today to see if we get follow through. So what that means, and you know, as you see, this whole spike hides, you know, just no edge in trying to short this at all, right? The only time here is you got this little bit of a spike higher here with the negative close, a little bit of exhaustion. Same thing on silver. That's where you'd expect it to turn. And right now, you can't chase it at highs. This is going to be a buy, right? And again, our base case is for this to trade 2,500, 3,000 into the end of the year. And there'll be a lot of seasonal setups there too. But right now, I don't know why you'd really want to step in front of this. So what I'm watching again is how this trades back down into this previous high. This previous high zone was coming in at 1920s, pretty much. And that's going to be the focal point. Does that mean that I want to be aggressively selling any bounces? Not really, but if you're holding shorts, it makes sense to give it a little bit of room. And in any case, wait for it further down, okay? You can also see silver's doing very, very similar action, right? So again, nothing much has changed to what we were looking at. You just have to, you know, let these things play out. Another trade which is particularly interesting today to me, especially if you see this little risk off come into play and a little bit of weakness, is EJ, right? EJ traded fairly, you got a little bit of a pop here, but let me just clear this up. It's pretty extended on the day here. This is an area where it's being sold off before, and also it's actually failed smack on at a DR3. So good odds that we close the day here. So for those of you who are aggressive, and for those of you who like to trade our setups around DS3, DR3 here, this is a very, very nice aggressive short, especially on a shorter time frame. And right here, you would expect here into the open, especially if we break down here, fairly high odds that at the very least we come back and we test this cluster here in the middle. But again, if we see the dollar catching a bid, if you see general risk off coming in across the board, this could be a very nice swing high that is just formed. And at that point, you would not be surprised to see it come right back down and test those lows. So that's something that I would definitely also have on the radar for today. I think crude is messy. Not too interested in crude today. So I think on the Forex side, again, EJ to the short side, I think is particularly interesting. There may be some kind of a buy on USD CHF depending on what the dollar does. I think in terms of those Euro, Aussie, Kiwi, those are all trades that are in play that we reviewed yesterday. There's no big change at all, but really the focus is going to be what happens on stocks. Now again, YM is still in a world of its own. You know, FDX was Cocaine Angel up yesterday, also Boeing's up 3% pre-market here, right? And banks are still strong. So you see that the, you know, with the banks staying bid, with these big blue chips staying bid, it's normal. You're going to see YM and Russell staying strong. Right here, YM is up 1.3% and Russell's up 1.1. There's no point fading those. There's no point fighting those. Again, unless you're trading some kind of pairs trade, you want to, don't be stubborn, right? You want to short the weakest and you want to get long the strongest, right? We've discussed that dynamic many, many times. Don't be stubborn about it because ultimately it's just going to get you in trouble, okay? So that's what I would be focused on today. And especially the most interesting thing for me remains the dynamic in the dollar that could lead to that acceleration down on metals and bonds and catch a lot of people off guard, and the action on the Nasdaq. Okay, so here let's start looking at some individual trades and some questions. So